Yes, and then the interest you get is 20 or something like that.
Yeah, and then the customer doesn't pay, so you get VAT back at 18% or so on all of that.
So if customer doesn't pay, basically you receive, you lose the 30, basically.
Yes, essentially. So when it comes to
then you receive the VAT back.
That's right. So when you look at common sense in how to create an asset in banking terms, you usually have to pay over £100 to create an asset of £100 because you've got to pay your funding and everything. But in retail, it costs much, much less to create an asset of £100. So lending at the same time as selling product with its loyalty features and with its low marketing costs and with its higher interest rate and its late payment fees and getting the VAT back if the customer goes bad means that it's just an immensely profitable thing to do.
Why don't more people do it?
I don't know. I'd love to go and introduce a credit offer into ASOS or something like that. But what tends to happen is that the guys that run these businesses are retailers, not financial services people. Now,
do you think you're running a lot of risk if you want through that balance sheet? Because suppose because what I'm seeing into next accounts is that the days to pay the outstanding balance has gone through the roof, and at the moment there's no impairments in the book, like zero, almost. I mean not zero, but almost zero. So the big risk is that at some point those days go up again, people don't pay you, as you say, you get your VAT back.
Well, let's work through a scenario here. And again, please pull me up if I'm not making any sense, because I kind of lived in this world for a while. If let's say you start to take on riskier customers, then the vast majority of that risk will crystallize very, very quickly. Yeah? Customer will buy something and not pay. What won't happen overnight is that because your lending criteria changes, the whole portfolio starts to become more risky, because the vast majority of those customers in that portfolio have been recruited over 25 years, longer. I think my wife's had an account since she was 18, so that means almost 30 years that she's had her account. And she still has her next credit account. So a change in lending policy does not change the quality of the book overnight. And indeed, a change in lending criteria will only affect the customers that you've recruited in the last few months. Yeah, and then it'll get bigger and bigger. But again, the losses crystallize very, very quickly. And indeed, they're not very big. What happens, however, is that because they go onto the balance sheet and then come off the balance sheet as bad debt, the bad debt number gets inflated. So for every, my experience from Embro is that for every £100 that goes through the accounts as bad debt, the loss associated with it was £23.
For whom is that?
The loss associated was £23.
Sorry, I didn't get the example, the numerical example.
Okay, so for every £100 that's called bad debt in the accounts, and is visible, only £23 was loss. Now I know that might sound silly.
The rest is recovered somehow.
The rest is margin and finance charges, and you get the VAT back and all of those things. Yeah, and actually VAT will come through the accounts as sales and an increase in sales if you get VAT back rather than a reduction in bad debts. So again, the way that these things are measured are, common sense would say that loss as a percentage of bad debt in the accounts of a bank is about 100%. And that would be true. In a retailer, it's not. It's very, very different. So you can, you can drastically change the lending criteria in a business like that and still not massively reduce the profitability because you aren't lending £100.
Right. Can I ask you one thing? Why aren't these things also more regulated by the FCA or something like that?
They are regulated. They're highly regulated, and the people that are approved persons in these organisations have to get licenses, go through the same criteria.